Well, hello again. This is Jeffrey Cranford with Links Players, and we have our new Director of Women's Ministry, Tracy, which all of us are very excited about. And we're going to continue in this little segment that we're doing, this little series that we're doing, Thinking Like a Pro. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a scenario that had happened to me recently. I've got a young guy that I started working with, and I was really encouraging him to go into competition. And I said, you're a little behind the curve. You need to get as much competition as you possibly can. And as he was doing that, he was beginning to find glaring deficiencies in his own game as a function of getting out into the real world of competitive golf. So sometimes you can go out and play with your friends and do something, and you don't really have a picture of what that looks like. But when you start to commit to being competitive, mm-hmm. you really find you get slapped around a little bit, and that's what had happened to him. And he was committed to, in this case, short game. And I was wondering for you, Tracy, as you look back over your career, was there anything that you got to a place and you go, I just cannot tolerate this anymore, and I've got to make a change?
Yeah, I was already 10 years into my career, and I was starting to get really frustrated because I felt like I was working hard and doing what I needed to do, but the results weren't there.
Right.
And I started with my putting, and I met a guy who said, I'll help you with your putting. And then it evolved into, well, if you want me to look at your swing, I'll look at your swing. And I ended up kind of 3/4 into my career making a significant swing change. And I really believe that swing change helped prolong my career. Without it, I probably would have had to step away earlier.
Yeah, and that process is not easy. What would you say to own it? How long did that take you? Not just to understand it, that's easy.
Right,
that's the easy part.
Yeah, to be able to compete with it, it was probably a full winter season of video work, repetitive swings, dissecting the movement, and hitting lots of range balls. Because you can hit them on the range, but to go out to the golf course is even a different piece of the puzzle, because when you're under pressure and you're competing, all those old habits want to pop back in. And so to be able to really be confident and own it and stay with it, even when things were hard on the golf course, was the challenge. And so it was a good full season.
It's a super challenge. Well, I know there's a similar situation when we start wanting to share our faith. The first time maybe we go out and we get in a scenario and we say, Jesus has really changed my life, and then somebody just kind of attacks us and with a line of reasoning that we've never heard, and we don't know the word well enough, and we respond and we feel like we tuck our little tail between our legs and waddle off into the sunset and say, boy, I'll never do that again, because I don't want to get embarrassed like that. And there's two responses to that. You either never do that again, or you begin to do the little detailed things, the nuances of both prayer and studying the Word. It reminds me of Paul's admonition to Timothy, who was a young guy. He was called to be a teacher. He knew he had a calling, but he was fearful. At one place, Paul says, the Lord has not given us, Timothy, a spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. So he's given us a sound mind, but it's also going to take some work. And so then he admonishes Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Our kids are in Awana, which means it's an acrostic for a workman that needs not be ashamed. But it says, be diligent to present yourself approved to God as a workman who does not need to be ashamed, does not need to tuck their tail and run, handling accurately the word of truth. So in doing that, I think we get in a scenario. Now, some people say, well, I'll keep my religion to myself. I think it's impossible. I think if the Holy Spirit is a growing reality in us, we will begin to get the heart of Jesus. And Jesus' heart, as all the prophets saw, was to be a light unto the whole world, a light to the nations. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, you think about those little details. How much of that, just even stuff you thought you already knew, just hitting those putts over and over, or those chip shots over and over again, was that a big part in really owning it, as opposed to, well, I've heard that somewhere, but I can't remember? But to own it is a whole nother process, isn't it?
Yeah, to own it, you have to practice it, and you have to see it. You have to spend the time, and sometimes it's painful to stand out there and practice. And I'd say personally, in my own walk with Jesus, it hasn't been easy, and it's been painful to sit in the scriptures and be still, and to pray and not fall asleep, and to stay diligent in that day after day.
Yeah.
And if you miss a day or you go for a season where it's hard, not to shame yourself and get frustrated and mad and walk away, but just continue to persevere through that.
Get back up again. I'll never forget, in closing, one year I was playing the BMW over in Munich, and I was hitting balls and working, and the round one was over, and I saw Bernhard Langer. It was a European Tour event. And I went over and I introduced myself, and we were talking. He'd invited me actually to the fellowship. They had a fellowship group that was meeting on the European Tour. And I was just watching what he was doing. He was about 3 feet off the green, hitting about a 15-foot chip shot out of a perfect lie. And he was just doing it over and over and over again. And I'm thinking, I don't have to practice that. I can get that up and down 99% of the time. To this day, I remember, why is he working on such a routine kind of a thing? Oh, I got that. It's a little bit like us, just every day getting up, a little piece of the Word, spend a little time with Jesus, pray to the Holy, pray that the Holy Spirit would fill you up for those moments that may come that day where you need to have hit that shot so many times that it just becomes a natural thing where you actually own it.
Right.
Where you actually own it. Let's go into that a little bit deeper next time as we continue this series.